what I actually think is a really interesting topic that we actually couldn't have discussed in the past episodes because we had a different perspective and esports had a different standard, which is the idea of gatekeeping. Like, you'll know where I am on this. I'm in a similar position to you. When things were awesome in esports, and quite frankly, the idea of a bad actor was just like a slightly dodgy businessman or liar, you know, like it wasn't really that bad back then, it seemed, right? When that was what the scene was like, I used to be one of those people who I was a bit hippie. I was just sort of like, hey man, let's not gatekeep anyone. Let's just let everyone like do their own thing, and you can disagree, but you know, whatever. And the joke was, I used to be battling against gatekeeping because I saw it as like the dreaded SJWs are trying to stop us all, etc. But the joke is, I actually realized in principle they're right. You should gatekeep really dangerous elements out of esports. The problem is, obviously, I disagree with who the targets are, and I certainly disagree with who they allow to stay. So the sad thing is, I actually realize it's not just the journalists in the scene that didn't learn the lessons of games journalist fucking Vietnam. It's us. We also didn't. Like, we were actually slow on the uptick. No one learned anything. Yeah, because here's the sad thing. I'll give you a really good distinction of what I'm talking about here. What I realize now is we really should have, like, very aggressively, like 5-7 years ago, tried to gatekeep certain people out of positions, and certainly the industry itself. Because I'll give you an example. Anyone who thinks this is some petty thing, I'm not talking about Sir Scoots or Froscoring or Frankie. Like, all these people are legit esports people who have a reason to be here. They have a job, they have a history, they're from esports, and I just disagree with them on actually sometimes quite minor things that won't really even matter in the grand scale. I'm not talking about these people. I'm talking about when you see the people who are only there to exploit the industry. They are only there to sometimes tell lies about people. They are only there to push a certain political narrative. And the reason why I always get a bit nervous about this is not for myself. I've been through the wars. It's I always just think of the next 18-year-old stupid kid who's going to roll out of bed and say the wrong thing, gets all life ruined. Yeah. This is going to be forever for him. You know, like, I always think that to myself as well, mate. I got to have a career before they started all this scrutiny. The other guy won't. He'll be labelled like that from day one. Richard, like we're saying, his worst moments at 17, and he's trying to be 27, trying to do legit work, and people are bringing it. So, what do you think on this topic?
Examples of that.
The gatekeeping one.
For me, the gatekeeping one's interesting because the concept that gatekeeping is bad is really silly. And gatekeeping as a negative term is a very recent development, and I think it's quite telling when people use it to say, if someone says to you, "Oh, gatekeeping's bad," right? It's like, well, what do you mean by that? Because another word for gatekeeping, by the way, is safeguarding. Okay, so for like people that we don't believe are appropriate to be around children for whatever reason, criminal past, right, or worse. You have to do a very detailed criminal reference background check to even work in a school. And those, after the terrible murders at Soham, that level of scrutiny only got increased. Never heard anyone in my life say, it's just a school, man. Why are we gatekeeping people from a school, man? Like, no, definitely gatekeep people from a school. Definitely keep children safe. Yeah, I'm all about that life. So, you know, that's just one example. There's loads I could use. I won't for brevity's sake. But in esports particularly, you have to think about what esports is. And okay, so esports is a space populated by teenagers, some cases children, but teenagers and young adults, many of whom, because they all come from very diverse, wide-reaching backgrounds. Yes, you could probably say that traditionally the middle-class white male demographic is dominated, but I think we all know that I'd be very interested to see what a breakdown of an esports audience looks like now, because I know, you know, just from my own experience, it's very, very different to what it was when I started 2 decades ago. So, you know, very, very different backgrounds, different strata, different sexualities, different genders, different race, different nationalities. It's a huge melting pot of young adults. One of the things that I do think a lot of the young adults will have in common, though, is because esports is what interests them. It's what gets them passionate. What that requires is you socialize through digital means as opposed to external means. And I think it's fair to say, although no doubt people will be mega critical at this point, but I'm over it. I think the average esports fan is under-socialized relative to their age. That's my read on it. Like I say, I've met 19 and 20-year-olds that behave like 14 and 15-year-olds. I know you've made the point about players, like, what is it? The Thorin rule is you subtract 4 or something, is it?
5. You take 5 off the number,
okay.
yes. Same concept, though, yeah.
Yeah. And there's a reason that older boomer types like you and me are arriving at this conclusion, because it wasn't always this way. So now that we have that audience, what does that audience engage with? Well, it engages with largely unfiltered, unfettered internet content on Discords, on forums, private forums, Twitter DMs, Reddit, YouTube, Instagram, and they are very, very susceptible to being influenced by influencers. That's the key to the business model. There's why we have all these horrible stories that come out about, Minecraft YouTubers and stuff like this. There are predators on that upper tier level, that take advantage of the naivety of our key audience. And then beyond the individual stuff, you then have huge corporations that specialize in creating technology designed to manipulate your feelings, to shorten your attention span, to make you more frustrated in a game, so you might pay more for an in-game item or an upgrade, but somehow also keep the dopamine hits coming, so you play as much as you can. And all the time they're developing this. Then the people who invest in those corporations, governments that are, on one hand, they're just going to fuck with your privacy, like the American government. They're just going to fuck with your privacy and just harass you. Or Saudi and China, they're going to fucking imprison you. Right, and they're the money men, that are in the top. Now, and I'm missing out loads of other little off ramps, but the point is this: how can you tell me that in the esports industry, thus structured, gatekeeping could ever be bad? Especially if you add into that mix a derelict press, a derelict journalist corps that are asleep at the wheel and can only react, never be proactive. How can you not want to gatekeep that space? Because I'll tell you, all of the significant things that happened in my life, including the passing of Maria, it's all linked to this, and it's linked to the idea that there is shit going on in the shadows, and no one wants to look, because as long as what's out front is fine, as long as the circus has the juggling man outside, no one really cares about how the, bearded lady's being treated behind the scenes. They don't give a fuck. And and that's the fundamental problem. Gatekeeping, sadly, is essential. And this concept of gatekeeping becoming a bad thing has led to untold harm, in my opinion. There are so many negative entities in the space, both collectively and individually, and there's loads of young adults that are going to get put into this grinder and are going to get hurt. So no, I'll never subscribe to the idea gatekeeping's bad. For me, it's more important than just you letting some wanker journalist with fucking blue hair that just spouts fucking, just calls you a fucking Nazi all day. Like, fuck off. I'm so over that, by the way. I couldn't give a fuck about all of that crew. They're an embarrassment to themselves. It's all dated so badly on both sides, by the way, frankly.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But it's the anti-SJW content of 2015 is cringe as fuck. But when you look back at it, but there was a cultural. There was something going on culturally that needed to be recorded and addressed and assessed, and that was just the medium through which people did it. But the bottom line is, for me, gatekeeping has now become about stopping Neom, stopping Saudi, stopping China, stopping predators, stopping mediocre executives, being pandered to by people who want money and favors from them, so nobody actually turns over the stones about all the horrible shit that they do for 10 years when they've got a fucking, line of victims as long as my arm. So more gatekeeping, if anything.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.